Hi boys and girls, today we're going to continue with the mystery of the mummy's curse, but first let's look over our spelling words. Again, we're still dealing with O, our short O sound, which is ah, stomp, crop, frost. Again, stomp, crop, frost. Our OY, our oi sound, coy, boy, joy, coy, boy, joy. And our other way of spelling the oi sound, OI, coil, choice, spoil, moist. All right, let's look at our vocabulary words. Okay, so we had exhibit, which means like a display. Synonyms, words that mean the same thing. Antonyms, words that mean the opposite. And artifact, that was a word we used at the very end of the chapter yesterday, but I'm not going to tell you what an artifact is. Pete is about to explain it in this chapter, so listen carefully and you'll find out what an artifact is. All right, we're going to continue with The Mystery of the Mummy's Curse by Gertrude Chandler Warren, Chapter 3, Mysterious Footsteps. I was just trying to be nice, Benny said, looking after Dr. Snood. I know, said Violet, don't feel bad. He's just a grumpy man, said Henry. But I wonder why, Jessie said. Is it just that he doesn't like kids, or is something else bothering him? Did you see how he was looking at the mummy when we came in? Violet asked. And then he seemed so startled when he saw us, Henry added, as if he'd been doing something wrong. Before they could say any more, Pete came hurrying into the room. Hi, kids, he called out. Sorry, I got stuck on the phone call. How long have you been here? Sorry, have you been here long? No, said Henry, we just got here. And ran into Dr. Snood, Benny said. He didn't seem very happy to see us, Jessie explained. She couldn't help but wonder why Dr. Snood was being so mean to them when they were only trying to help out the museum. Pete, what's an artifact? Benny asked, remembering one of the words Dr. Snood had used. Listen carefully. An artifact is an object made by people a long time ago, Pete answered. Like all these pieces here, the cups, pots, toys, instruments, and sculptures, we can learn a lot about the people who lived a long time ago by studying the things they left behind. So an artifact is something made by people long ago. That makes all these objects very valuable, said Pete. They're important, and they're also worth lots of money. Don't worry, we'll be careful, Benny assured him. I know you will, Pete said. Now, how about we get to work? We'll start by cleaning out the exhibit hall next door, where the exhibit will be set up for the public. The Aldens followed Pete through a side door into a much larger room. It was filled with glass display cases, cardboard boxes, everything was covered in dust, and the paint on the walls was chipped and peeling. Hey, isn't that a model of the solar system? Henry asked, pointing to a group of balls in different sizes hanging from the ceiling. And there are some photographs of the moon over there, Violet added. The last exhibit in here was about outer space, Pete explained. And now it's just a mess, Benny said. Well, said Jessie, rolling up her sleeves, where do we start? In no time, the Aldens were busy. Pete went through everything in the room, dividing it into things to save and things to throw away. While they were working, Dr. Dickerson arrived in a big straw bag over her shoulder, a briefcase in her other hand. Cleaning up the exhibit hall, she asked. Yes, and the Aldens are helping, Pete said. Since Tina is out and our cleaning crew can't do the extra work, the kids offered to help get the exhibit ready. The Aldens waited to hear what Dr. Dickerson would say. They were afraid that she might not want their help. That's great, Dr. Dickerson said, a smile slowly spreading across her face. We're so glad you like the idea, Dr. Dickerson, said Jessie. We'll do a great job, I promise. You can start by calling me Sam, like all my friends do, she said. Then she turned to Pete. How does Dr. Snood feel about the children helping out? I imagine he wouldn't like the idea. And before we continue, here's a picture, and see how hard they're working? And it does look like they have a very big mess to clean up. The corners of her mouth were curled into a small, mysterious smile. He doesn't seem to like kids at all, said Henry. You're right about that, said Sam. But how would you know about that? Pete asked. You haven't met Dr. Snood yet, have you? Oh, no, I haven't, but I'm sure I'll meet him soon, Dr. Dickerson said. She looked uncomfortable for a moment. Anyway, I know how museum directors can be. Well, he agreed to it when I told him last night, Pete said. I think it's because he knows we have no other choice. As the children were leaving the museum that evening, they heard a voice behind them say, Hey, Aldens. They turned around and were surprised to see Lori Paulson walking quickly toward them, her orange bag swinging as she walked. She seemed just as surprised to see them. What are you doing back here again? She asked. There was an awkward silence as the children wondered what to say. They didn't want to be rude, but they knew the details of the exhibit were a secret. "We're helping with the new exhibit, but Pete told us not to talk about it," said Henry at last, trying to sound firm. His answer didn't stop Lori from asking, "What's going to be in the exhibit? Did you see a mummy?" "Actually, we haven't seen anything," Violet said, surprising everyone. She was very shy and didn't usually say much to people she didn't know well. "We've just been cleaning out the exhibit hall upstairs." "So the exhibit will be upstairs," Lori said, "and they must be preparing the pieces nearby?" Now she seemed to be talking to herself, almost thinking aloud. "We've got to get going," Henry said. "All right," said Lori. "Thanks." She seemed to have learned what she wanted to know. She headed off in the opposite direction. "I hope we didn't give away something we shouldn't have," said Violet. The next day, the children returned to the museum. Pete had other work to do, so he told them to go right upstairs and get to work without him. The Aldens came down the long, dark hallway. When they reached the exhibit hall, Jessie flipped on a light switch, filling the windowless room with light. The Aldens carefully packed the last of the old outer space displays into boxes. They were so hard at work that the room remained eerily quiet. Suddenly, Violet heard some footsteps in the hall. "That must be Sam or Pete," she said, expecting someone to appear in the doorway at any moment. But a few minutes passed and there was nothing but silence. "That's funny," said Violet. "What?" asked Jessie. "I just heard footsteps in the hallway," Violet said. She went into the door and looked down the long, dark hallway in both directions. There was nobody there. "Maybe I was just imagining it," Violet said. The children went back to work, and a few minutes later the sounds of footsteps returned. "Hey, do you guys hear that?" Violet asked in a hushed voice. Everyone listened, but the sounds in the hallway had stopped. "What was it?" asked Jessie. "I heard footsteps again," Violet said, going to the door once more. But when she looked out in the hall, there was no one there. "I heard something too," said Henry. He looked puzzled. "What's the big deal?" asked Jessie. "Maybe there was someone in the hall, and whoever it was went into another room." "But there aren't any other rooms in this part of the museum," Henry said. "Just this exhibit hall and the prep room. Why would someone be up here unless he or she was doing something with the Egyptian exhibit?" "Maybe it was Dr. Snood checking up on us," said Benny. "Or Lori Paulson," suggested Henry. "She knows the exhibit's up here, and she seems awfully interested in it for some reason." Suddenly, Benny's eyes grew wide. "Or maybe it was the mummy." "Oh, Benny," said Jessie. "Well, it would sound quiet if it walked," Benny pointed out. "I mean, it's not wearing any shoes." He stood up, closed his eyes, stuck out his arms stiffly, and pretended to walk like the mummy. The children's laughter was interrupted by Sam's arrival. She walked briskly into the room, carrying a large straw bag. "Oh, hello, Sam," Jessie said. "Did you just get here?" Violet asked. "You weren't in the hallway a few minutes ago, were you?" "No," said Sam. "Just got here." "You didn't see anybody out in the hall, did you?" Henry asked. "Nope," said Sam. "Why?" "Oh, nothing," said Henry. "We just thought we heard someone a little while ago." "Really?" Sam looked concerned. "There shouldn't be anybody up here besides us." Then she smiled. "Well, there's nobody there now," Sam said. "I'm glad to see you're getting the room ready. I've got a lot of work to do myself." She went into the prep room, but came out a moment later. "Have any of you been in the prep room this morning?" she asked. Her face was very grim. "No, why?" Jessie asked. "Come see," said Sam. The children went into the prep room, curious about what was the matter. As soon as they stepped into the door, they could see why Sam was upset. The papers on Sam's desk were no longer in neat piles. Instead, they were moved around, and some had slipped onto the floor. The artifacts, which had been lined up in orderly rows, were now scattered all about the tables. The children's jaws dropped open. "What happened?" asked Violet. "I don't know," said Sam. All right, well, that's the end of our chapter. It's a little bit of a cliffhanger. Something scary and mysterious is going on, and we don't really know what it is. So the kids were surprised when Violet spoke up. Why? Because she's normally a very shy person. And Lori says they must be prepping the pieces nearby. She's really wanting information about this stuff from Egypt, and I don't know if she's supposed to have it. She definitely seems suspicious. And do you think it could be Lori, though, who scattered around the artifacts? Remember, artifacts are things made by people from long ago. They help us learn about past cultures. Thanks for listening, and we'll read more tomorrow.